Welcome back, Beaconators, to another edition of Better Body Mechanics. Today we're going to be improving our pulling mechanics. We're going to look for employing this to improve our deadlift. Sumo deadlift could be heavy kettlebell swings or just a workout with a ton of kettlebell swings in it. Weighted bridges, anything that you're doing a pulling motion with the posterior chain. So what we're going to try to do a lot of is some more of the banded distraction. So if you could imagine that this is my femur and my femur head of my right leg. So I'm looking at this situation, and this is my joint capsule that it's plugged into. So this is kind of what the hip joint looks like. And when we sit a lot, and we're not doing a lot of mobility, we tend to stiffen up in that joint. There's not a lot of articulation that happens. So a lot of what we're going to do today gets that hip head, femur head to move around in the socket and spend some time under tension to reestablish the relationship so it has some better arthrokinematics to be able to move around in that joint. That allows us to have a better ability to get into flexion, get into extension, or get into some type of rotational situation with better leverage. So we're going to start with a hammy floss. And our test here is you could use a kettlebell or some type of weight, and you could just come down and do a few reps and just kind of feel how that low back feels. Is it really hard to get into a nice solid position? Or you can just lean over and see where you feel the tension in your hamstrings. Ideally, you're not feeling too much tension in the back of the knee. You're feeling it somewhere in the middle of knee to sit bone or the butt. So we'll start and we'll load up our left leg. We're going to get that band all the way up to where the hip flexor is. We're going to inch our way out until we get a decent amount of tension pulling posteriorly to that joint, that hip capsule. I'm going to take a split-legged stance. I'm going to have basically heel to toe. My right foot is almost maybe a little bit more, a few inches beyond my heel of my left foot. And I'm like half a foot split. You can use a bench or something to reach to, or you can just come down to the floor, fingertips or full hands. And essentially you're going to start in a bent knee position, and you're going to floss that leg straight by trying to push your right hip to your left knee. So you're closing your hips off as you floss. So I'm bent and I'm closing. Bent, closing. You can pick a number, maybe try to hit 20 flosses, or we can just note the time and try to get about 2 minutes here. So a couple things happening in this stretch. We're trying to create better leverage from the floor in our pulling. So we're taking something from a hip hinged position and standing it up straight. So we need as much leverage as we can get. So we're going to get our mechanical advantage by getting that hip back into the socket. And we're doing that by tensioning that femur head, by winding ourselves up with this band, and also we're using gravity by jamming our foot into the ground and letting gravity push that femur head through the back of the hip socket. So you can even lean forward and take that right foot off the ground and just let that thing push to the back. As long as you're consciously trying to relax everything and let that band pull and let that femur push into the back of the socket. So I'll hang out here for about another minute. Maybe spend like 5 or 6 seconds at that locked out position and just kind of deep breath and let everything pull out. Take off the tension, wind it up. Take off the tension, wind it up. You can even go so far as to add a little bit of a twist. And even a push, if you wanted to push on that femur a little bit. We're here for about 10 more seconds. And we can come on out of there. So we'll get a little bit of a retest. Find your implement. See how that feels. You can just take a hinge with a slight bend in the knee and see where your tension pops up. I don't feel any tension in this left hamstring. I get blocked by this right one when I come down. I can only feel tension here. So I'm going to go ahead, step in my right leg, and even it off. Get that tension up right on the front part of that leg above the hip flexor. And we're going to hang out here for roughly 2 minutes or maybe 20 to 30 flosses. Oh yeah, there we go. So it's been about a minute, and I can feel that release now. You can feel my hip capsule kind of letting go a little bit. So I'm gonna add a little bit of a push and a twist. Trying to get that left hip towards my right knee when I'm in that locked out position, and then I open up. Load it up, open up. Load it up, lean forward, open up. Deep breath up, let that thing pull. Here for about 30 more seconds. For 10 more seconds. Getting that leverage, creating that leverage. And then inch out of that. So you should have created a whole lot more pulling leverage and the ability to get that load off the ground. Next up, you're going to need your chair or weight cushion thingy implement. I've got lucky enough to have a bench here. And we're going to do something similar, but we're going to do it in a 90-degree position. So these are 90-degree banded distractions. Load up that left hip. And you can do this posteriorly, or you can do it maybe slightly to the side, like in between lateral and posterior. And you're just going to come in and grab a 90-degree position. I'm actually going to go lateral with this one. And I'm just going to get my left knee in a 90-degree position on this bench and try to just hang out here for about 2 minutes. While you're here, you can just hunt around for a good spot where it's most resisted to try to break through that resistance. So you can twist into that leg. Couple deep breaths there. If you have more flexibility than me, you can try to shove on that leg, but I have a lot of resistance to that. So that's very difficult and uncomfortable for me, but embrace the discomfort because it goes a long way. Try to keep a straight back if you can and bend forward. And just let yourself sink into that position. It's going to take at least a minute before you notice that stuff starts to turn off. You can try to extend out of 90 degrees to a more obtuse or larger angle at the knee. You could try to hunt away from that knee. Add some pressure. Here for about 30-ish more seconds. This one is very uncomfortable for me, but when I come out of it, it's beautiful. I feel super great, super good in that hip capsule. And I feel ready to do anything heavy. This creates a lot of room for me to be able to hinge at the hip. 10 more seconds. And come on out. Good test for that one. To come down in a deep squat, I can get this lefty way out. I am blocked on my right. I can send that sucker way out because I created a lot of range, rotation, external rotational range. So we'll load up the front of that right leg. Find our 90-degree position. I'm distracted of roughly lateral, maybe biased posterior. Yeah, this one's a lot worse. Since I'm a righty, I'm a lot more restricted in my range, my external range of motion, external rotation range of motion in my right hip. So this one's huge for me. And we're here for 2 minutes. Pay attention to that 1 minute mark where you'll notice stuff will start to relax a little bit. Try to find that most restrictive spot and stay there as long as you can for the first minute, and then you can start hunting around. You might need to hunt around that first minute a little bit to find it. I know where I'm tight, so I don't have to go too far. I just got to get into the position, and it's no good. Yep, and I just felt it kind of relax out. I'm going to find some more restrictive positions. When I get into it and push my left hip towards my right knee here, this is very difficult. This is a good one. I'm going to stay here for a little bit. Straight breaths, try to straighten my back. About 45 more seconds. Damn, this is uncomfortable as hell, but it's worth it in the long run. You can try to sink down, employ a bit of that flossing. Hang out for another 20 seconds. Stick with it. Bear down, pain face. And come on out of there. Ooh-wee. And that right leg's tight. Give it a little test. Oh yeah, I got some space. I got some more space. So I'm gonna have a nice advantage in any deadlift pulling. Some cleans would be, have a lot of mechanical advantage coming off the floor for the clean. We're gonna do shift to what I call a goalie stretch. Some of you may know this one. We're going to band this one up posteriorly as well. So I'm going to load up that left leg, come down, and I'm going to pitch that left leg out. I'm going to have my foot flat on the floor, facing maybe 25, 35 degrees out, and I'm just going to do some cat camels here as best that I can. And let that band just distract the leg back. And I'm not going to spend 2 minutes in this one. I'm just going to do about 10 to 20 kind of cat camels while I'm here. This is going to get a lot of newly found leverage through your adductors, which are your groin muscles, your medial muscles, which have a lot of interaction with your hamstrings. They tend to innervate together, they tend to get sticky together, and this kind of creates more of a lateral capability for leverage. So if you're doing something like sumo deadlifts, this would be a very good warm-up or mobility component for range of motion there. Got about 10 or so. I'm going to switch it up. Pitch that leg out, foot flat, 25, 35 degree angle. You can play with position here. You can do it from a pitched in position. You can do it with the body away. A little bit more distraction. Yeah, that's a whole lot better. Woo! Super tight on that right side. Not surprised. Go, come on out of there. We got a couple bonus items. Create strength component to be ready for heavier lifts. To get that low back stronger, we'll do something called a Sorensen hold. I'm not going to hold it for the whole time, but the idea here would be able to accumulate about 2 minutes of hold with a very clean, straight line position. And this is something that will go a long way in heavy pulls because it gets your low back ready to sustain static tension. Static meaning that you're not contracting or extending or anything. You're just in one position and you're turned on. So any way you can, usually you can do this in the GHD, but if you're at home, you could find a way to anchor your feet and just being kind of a, you could also do Superman, but ideally you want to have your low back on and tight. You can make it more difficult by putting your arms up or holding a weight here at your chest. But you want to have as neutral of a spine as possible, low back, hamstrings, and glutes all on, and you just accumulate roughly 2 minutes. Maybe you're doing 30 seconds at a time, 20, 10, whatever it is, you're going to get that low back a little stronger. And then another exercise you can employ is a Jefferson curl. Jefferson curl typically done with light weight, maybe a barbell or a light kettlebell. You can do it without a riser for a deficit, or you can do it with a deficit. So I've got this yoga block to create a deficit for myself. So when I come down, I have to go very, very low. You can also use a bench. But ultimately, the movement is a deadlift through full spinal flexion. So you kind of slowly go down at a tempo of maybe a 4 count, where you get down all the way, vertebrae by vertebrae, and then you go back up, vertebrae by vertebrae. So really, it's like almost like a loaded cat-cow in a standing position. Trying to get that spine some fluidity. This is kind of an injury prevention thing, and it really gets all of your spinalis muscles, the deep, deep muscles in your spine, awake for heavy, heavy pulling. That's why we're doing it with a light load, just to wake things up. And you could do 3 sets of 10 at a tempo of 4 down, 1 second hold, and then right up, 4 down, 1 second hold, right up. That's your Better Body Mechanics for pulling. Thanks for joining. See you next time.